Hello everyone, got 4 dirty jokes for you today. So an 80-year-old man leans over and asks his wife, "Do you remember the first time we made love together over 50 years ago? We went behind the village tavern where you leaned against the back fence." "Yes," she says, "I remember it well." "Okay," he says, "how about taking a stroll around there again and we can do it for old time's sake?" "Oh, Jim, you old devil, that sounds like a crazy, but good idea." A police officer sitting in the next booth heard their conversation and, having a chuckle to himself, he thinks to himself, "I've got to see what these 2 old-timers are up to. I'll just keep an eye on them so there's no trouble." So he follows them. The elderly couple walks haltingly along, leaning on each other for support aided by walking sticks. Finally, they get to the back of the tavern and make their way to the fence, and the old lady lifts her skirt. As she leans against the fence, the old man moves in. Then suddenly they erupt into the most furious action that the policeman has ever seen. This goes on for about 10 minutes while both are making loud noises and moaning and screaming. Finally, they both collapse, panting on the ground. The policeman is amazed. He thinks he has learned something about life and old age that he didn't know. After about half an hour of lying on the ground recovering, the old couple struggle to their feet and put their clothes back on. The policeman is still watching and thinks to himself, "This is truly amazing. I've got to ask them what their secret is." So, as the couple passes, he says to them, "Excuse me, but that was something else. You must have had a fantastic love life together. Is there some sort of secret to this?" Shaking, the old man is barely able to reply. 50 years ago, that wasn't an electric fence. So an Irishman named O'Malley went to his doctor after a long illness. The doctor, after a lengthy examination, sighed and looked O'Malley in the eye and said, "I've some bad news for you. You have cancer, and it can't be cured. You'd best put your affairs in order." O'Malley was shocked and saddened, but of solid character. He managed to compose himself and walk from the doctor's office into the waiting room. To his son, who had been waiting, O'Malley said, "Well, son, we Irish celebrate when things are good, and we celebrate when things don't go so well. In this case, things aren't so well. I have cancer. Let's head for the pub and have a few pints." After 3 or 4 pints, the two were feeling a little less somber. There were some laughs and more beers. They were eventually approached by some of O'Malley's old friends who asked what the two were celebrating. O'Malley told them that the Irish celebrate the good and the bad. He went on to tell them that they were drinking to his impending end. He told his friends, "I have been diagnosed with AIDS." The friends gave O'Malley their condolences, and they had a couple more beers. After his friends left, O'Malley's son whispered his confusion. "Dad, I thought you said that you were dying from cancer. You just told your friends that you were dying from AIDS." O'Malley smiled and said, "I don't want any of them sleeping with your mother after I'm gone." So 3 rough-looking bikers stop into a truck stop where a grizzled old-timer is having breakfast. One of the bikers extinguishes his cigarette in the old guy's pancakes. The second biker spits a wad of chewing tobacco into his coffee. The third biker dumps the whole plate onto the floor. Without a word of protest, the old guy pays his bill and leaves. "Not much of a man, was he?" says one of the bikers. "Not much of a driver either," says the waitress. "He just backed his truck over 3 motorcycles." So a young bartender started working at a saloon out west. On one of his first days on the job, a cowboy bursts through the door and shouts, "Head for the hills. Big Bill's coming into town." The bartender had never seen such a scuffle as everyone in the bar scrambled for the doors. Amidst a scuffle of flying chairs and knocked over tables, the bartender is thrown to the ground unconscious. When he came back to his senses, he saw Buffalo being ridden by the biggest man he ever saw pull up to the doors of the saloon. The man had the scars from a grizzly bear paw across his face and spit his tobacco with such force that it broke a window. He burst into the bar, knocking the doors off their hinges, picked the bartender up off the floor, and set him behind the bar. "Gimme a whiskey," he growled, the horrendous breath nearly choking the bartender. The bartender shakily grabbed the nearest bottle of whiskey and poured a glass for the man. He slammed it down like it was water. The bartender, deciding to put on a brave face, feebly asked if he would like another. The man snorted back, "I got to go. Didn't you hear? Big Bill's coming to town."